from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 2, entitled Hiranyakashipu, King of the Demons, text 36. Hiranyakashipu is herein trying to pacify the lamentation of his mother, his sister-in-law, and other such relatives. The great Lord Varahadev has just slain Hiranyaksha. And of course, due to the human ego, Hiranyakashipu saw nothing but the good qualities in Hiranyaksha and nothing but faults in Varahadev. He considered Hiranyaksha, he may have made some mistakes, but he was noble, heroic, loyal, so many good qualities. But Varahadev, by killing my brother, he violated the principle of equality. Although he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is supposed to be equal to all, he has taken side with the demigods. Therefore, he deserves to die. Although Hiranyakashipu understood that Vishnu is the Lord, see to the extent false pride can delude the consciousness. He was actually convinced that he could sever the head of the Lord and drink his blood to pacify the departed soul of his brother. However, after revealing such insanity, he goes on to speak profound, systematic philosophy, perfectly based on the revealed scriptures. He is telling that, my dear relatives, why you lament? The body and the soul are different. The soul never dies. The body essentially is always dead. There is never a connection between the soul and the body in terms of identity. The soul has to temporarily live within a body, and then at a certain time it moves forward. Now, stories are very effective to grasp people's attention. Because after all, what is the use of philosophy if it does not transform the heart? The purpose of all the scriptures is to transform the heart. Vedaishta sarveraham eva vedyo vedantakrit vedavadeva chaham. Krishna tells all the Vedas are to know me. So Hiranyakashipu, he begins a beautiful story, an old history about a king named Suyagya. He was a great, powerful king who fought on the battlefield courageously. In those days, kings showed their love, you can say, showed their concern, showed their loyalty to their citizens by willing to be in the front of the lines of battle and personally fight. It wasn't about getting votes, having office, being famous, getting a lot of bribes perhaps, directly or indirectly. It was about sacrifice. If there was a war to be fought for the protection of the citizens, the king was first in the battlefield. And he had to be a great fighter. Suyagya was slain. And Hiranyakashipu was describing his body was laid, splattered with blood. His limbs were crushed. Sprawled out on the battlefield, he had his golden helmet, his armor, and his teeth were very tight, biting, like one who is in anger. He fought to the end. And obviously, a very powerful man. But in Srila Prabhupada's purport, quoting from the previous acharyas, he explains how, however powerful one may be, however great, however learned, there is a power beyond our own. The power of God. And in this world, the power of God is constantly manifest within the laws of karma. Destiny is all powerful. If one is meant to die through the power of an insignificant insect, there's nothing that can save you. Yes? We had experience with our Radha Gopinath Prabhu. Yeah. Very good brahmachari, excellent sadhu. Brahmin, South India, Iyengar, yes? Very noble family. Has master's degree, has his own school, earning good money. What family would want to see someone like that become a brahmachari? Loss of money, loss of everything to the family, but he came. I remember when I first met him, he had so many questions. We were in a little village outside of Belgaum. What was the name of that village? Yes, like that. And I just gave lecture, kirtan, questions and answers. I was so tired. There was a nice tree. I think it was a tamarind tree. Very beautiful tree. Nice shade. And they said, Swamiji, you can rest under this tree. So I'm sitting under the tree, and here comes this person. And he had questions. One question after another, after another, after another. And they were such complex questions. In my heart, I was so offensive. I was thinking, when will he leave me alone? I had another program in the evening, another lecture, another kirtan, so many hundreds of devotees, let me rest. But he kept asking questions. And in my heart I was thinking, this is an extraordinary, special person. Yes. You never know who is who. Anybody who comes to the Sangam of Vaishnavas, we should know that Krishna in the heart of that personality has brought him. We do not know who that person is, where they've been. So he became nice brahmachari, wonderful brahmachari. Humble menial services, powerful grasp of the philosophy. He already knew quite well as a scholar of Sanskrit, singing, yes. So he dovetailed his propensities and became a very prominent preacher. And thousands and thousands of people through his Gita discourses, his Bhagavad discourses, he's attracted their hearts wherever he goes. When he was in Pune, everybody there said, Radha Gopinath Prabhu is our brahmachari. When he was in Sion, he is our brahmachari. When he was at Mira Road, he is our brahmachari. Wherever he goes, people love him because his good qualities, his precise, powerful presentation of the philosophy, very systematic. Yes. So amazingly, he went to visit his hometown near Bangalore in Karnataka, and the whole town had a festival to welcome him. Yes, family, I think the mayor came, everyone came. They had a festival to welcome. A boy from our town has become a sadhu. This is so auspicious. Only in India is it like this. Anyways, we'll now fast forward several years. Yes, he has influenced thousands and thousands of people, and people are listening to his tapes and his CDs and his videos all over the world and everything else. And he's one of the temple presidents of Radha Gopinath Temple here. Despite his own ideas. So he's in Mayapur. And how big was that mosquito that bit me? He doesn't even know where the mosquito bit him. He's a very tall person. And mosquito is very small, very tiny. And this tiny, tiny little mosquito, skinny little arms, skinny little legs, just within a second. Something went to the virus went to his brain. He was in intensive care. He was absolutely devastated. Had to be brought to a hospital. Doctor said if you would have come 1 hour later, you could have never survived. He's laying there in intensive care. The power of a little tiny mosquito. Mosquito doesn't know any slokas. Radha Gopinath knows hundreds and hundreds of Sanskrit slokas, Bengali slokas, all these. What does a mosquito know? But destiny. He was conquered, defeated. The mosquito had a good festival, Utsav, good feast, and Radha Gopinath suffered for weeks and weeks and weeks. So it's not a matter of, Prabhupada explains in these purports, very, very wealthy man with the best doctors, suffering horrible diseases. And people who can't afford anything are in such good health. We are not the controllers, we are never the controllers. Destiny is very powerful. So here is Suyagya. Although so great, he's defeated. He's dead. And on the material platform, death is very inconceivable to the mind because it is irreversible. It's done. It cannot be changed. There's nothing we could do to try to change things, make it different so it wouldn't have happened. Padam padam yadvi padam natesham, the nature of this world, so much danger at every step. A moment of inattentiveness, death may come upon us. And there's nothing you could do to redo that. It's done. We have seen. So he's finished. His queens, they are so brokenhearted due to deep attachment. Attachment in the sense, he gave them such emotional gratification and protection and physical gratification and affection. How will they live without? Their entire life was full of uncertainties. They were holding on to his body, weeping, crying. And when it was time for the last rites before the sun sets, they were just embracing that body, unwilling to let it go. Now Yamaraj is Mahajan. He's a very compassionate, great Vaishnava. He saw the situation. Is this love? Real love can only be where we are conscious of who our object of love is. Srila Prabhupada used example. If a man is drowning and you swim out to the lake and take his clothes off and bring it back to the shore, is that love? You save the clothes, but the man suffers and dies. Basamsya jirnani yathavihaya. The body is only the clothes in which the soul is wearing temporarily. And real love must be expressed by our deep concern for the person, for the Atma, for the spirit soul. These queens, because of their own selfish, ignorant attachment to the body, they wouldn't let their husband his body be brought to the last rites. But what was actually happening? This is explained by our acharyas in the purport. because he was so attached to the body. And he was so attached to his queens. And he was so attached to his position. His soul, like a ghost, was hovering around that body, wouldn't let that body go. Not only because of the body itself, but because of the objects that the body was attached to. Primarily, the queens. So that soul is here in a ghostly body, unable to move forward, in a miserable condition. He can't enjoy that body anymore. It's dead. But he can't give it up. He can't move on. He can't have a relationship with the queens anymore. But he can't separate himself from the bodily connection to them. So all of his progress is blocked. He's a ghost, simply clinging to a dead corpse. Why? Because of his queen's so-called love. These queens were performing the greatest injustice to their husband. They were perpetuating horrible suffering. We are reading today, this is why the custom is that if a person dies in the day, the body should either be burned or buried before the sun sets. And if he dies after the sunset, it should be burned or buried before the sunrise. Why? It's based on a science, on a philosophy of compassion for that soul. What is the use of stagnating our progress in destiny, our progress toward God, due to attachment to a dead corpse? So when you burn the body, there's nothing for the soul to hover around and be attached to anymore. So it moves on according to its destiny. Sarva dharman parityasya mam ekam sharanam vraja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami masaja. Ultimately, before death, it is the duty of every human being to surrender to Krishna. Whatever our destiny may be, there is no power that could intervene within our destiny except that of God. Karma is a law. What goes up must come down. It doesn't matter whether you believe it. You cannot change that law. Whatever sins, whatever pious deeds we have performed, we must reap the results. But if we surrender to Krishna, He protects us from all sinful reactions. He removes us from the laws that He has created and brings us into the shelter of His own compassionate nature. Mahatmanas tumam parata daivim prakriti mashada. Mahatma is that person, that great soul, who takes shelter of the Lord, who worships the Lord. The Lord puts that person under the control of His divine internal energy. Otherwise, we're simply at the disposal of Maya, the illusory energy. So Yamaraj wanted to show compassion to this king. And also the queens as well. What is their future? Being endlessly attached to a dead corpse, weeping and crying. Is it that if they just keep the corpse, preserve the corpse, after some days they'll overcome their grieving and have a relationship again? As long as they're keeping that corpse, their suffering is perpetuated. Neither the king can move on, nor could the queens. Is this love? In Krishna consciousness, because we are aware of the eternal soul, we can express tangible love that will actually benefit others. Hiranyakashipu, he's telling this wonderful story with such excellent philosophy of the difference between body and spirit, and even the power of God. But what is the use? Srila Prabhupada spoke to one PhD candidate who was asking him about philosophy. Interesting conversation. She said, I am doing my PhD thesis on the subject of how Indian gurus have affected Western culture. Can you tell me how you feel you have affected Western culture? Prabhupada said, what culture? What culture you're talking about? The cow is giving you milk like your mother, and then you're cutting the throat of the cow, you're drinking the blood, you're eating the meat, eating your mother. What kind of gratitude is that? What kind of culture is that? In your own religion, thou shalt not kill, and you're killing. Where is your culture? She wasn't expecting that answer. She tried to change the subject, but Srila Prabhupada was very, very strong. Finally, exasperated, she said, Sir, can I ask you a philosophical question? Would you like to hear Prabhupada's reply? Prabhupada said, philosophy without good character has no value. He said, little or no value whatsoever. Here we find this principle to its extreme. Hiranyakashipu could speak philosophy probably better than anyone in the world today. What a brain he had. But he didn't have good character. What is the use? Therefore, there was no realization. Rather, his philosophy, although it was correct, was bringing him down rather than up. Because Krishna, he is bhavagrahi. He doesn't accept what you speak and what you do. Krishna accepts your intention, the purpose in which you are speaking and doing. That is bhakti. Bhakti is about our intention. How many people milk cows? In the West, there are so many So many people milking cows. And when the cows give less milk, they send them to slaughterhouse. The gopis are milking cows. The gopis are taking care of cows. They're churning butter. So many people are doing that. Why are they the supreme, super excellent, most intimate of all devotees? Because of their purpose. Their exclusive, singular purpose only for Krishna's pleasure. To assist Sri Radharani in giving pleasure to Bhagavan, Lord Krishna. That's all. And because the intensity, the intimacy, the purity of their love, even when they're churning butter, that's the ultimate yoga. Their churning butter is accessing the highest pleasure of Gopinath. And he's filling their hearts with the highest ecstasies of love. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains that the gopis of Vrindavan never consider their own welfare or their own happiness. Never. They're only thinking of the happiness of Radha and Krishna. And therefore, Radha, Gopinath fill their hearts with the highest happiness. If you do not want happiness, you only want Krishna's happiness, Krishna reciprocates and gives you the ultimate happiness. But if their ecstasies is in any way interfering with the capacity in which they could serve the Lord, they consider their ecstatic symptoms to be an impediment and pray that it will go away because it is not their concern. So it is not about simply the external manifestations of what we can do and what we can say. Krishna's Paramatma. He's seeing within the core of the heart. He's seeing the motive, the intention, the purpose of our every thought, our every word, and our every deed. And according to that motivation, Krishna is going to reciprocate and reveal himself. So, herein we find that Hiranyakashipu, he's a great scholar. He's a genius. But what is his purpose? His purpose is Kanaka Kamini Pratishta. He wants to enjoy beautiful women. He wants to enjoy fabulous wealth. And he wants to enjoy prestige. Being honored and worshipped by others. Therefore, because of this bad character, all of his genius understanding of philosophy is corrupt. And we have little Prahlad, 5-year-old son. At one time, he was Hiranyakashipu's favorite son. Hiranyakashipu loved him. He would put little Prahlad in his lap, embrace him, smell his head, and tears would flow from Hiranyakashipu's eyes in fatherly affection. But he was a devotee. He was a devotee of the killer of his brother. And worse than that, Hiranyakashipu could not control his son. Now, there are many parents assembled here today. What type of anxiety is there in your heart when you cannot control your child? When they're doing just opposite what you expect them to do. When they're behaving in such a way that they're creating a terrible stain on your reputation in society, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's a very miserable condition. That was Hiranyakashipu's condition. And we know the story, how he blasphemed Prahlad, threatened him, attempted to murder him through so many different ways. But what was Prahlad's character? He cared nothing about his own welfare. He cared nothing about his own position. He cared nothing about anything for himself. At any cost, he simply wanted to please Krishna. He was faithful to Krishna. And this is what Vaishnavism is about. Being faithful to the will of the Lord in the face of great obstacles. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has told us that obstacles come in the path of a devotee's life only to make that devotee stronger. Only to bring that devotee closer to Krishna. If we have the right purpose. So little Prahlad, he didn't care. As long as Krishna was satisfied, if the whole race of the whole society around him hated him, and his life was at stake, didn't matter. If Krishna's pleased, sam siddhir haritoshanam, then my life is successful. So yes, there will be many temptations that come in our life to try to bring us away from the path of truth. When you're sitting on the bank of a river, the river Ganga or Yamuna, and you see the flow of the river, many objects enter into the river. Leaves, flowers, sometimes trees, corpses of buffaloes, humans, they're floating down the river. If they just stay in that current, they're going to reach the sea. However, if you're sitting on the bank of the Ganga in Rishikesh, where the river is flowing very forcefully, how many of those flowers are going to reach the sea? Most of them will somehow or other be attracted to the bank, and its progress is stopped. If we simply take shelter of the current of the Lord's mercy and remain on the path of pure devotional service as given to us by Rupa Goswami and his descendants in Parampara, then we will reach the sea, Karuna Sindhu, the sea of Krishna's eternal mercy. Twayi me nanya vishaya matir madhupate sakrit. Ratim udvahatad ada gangevo gam udanvati. Queen Kunti prayed in this way. O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea, without stopping, without hindrance, let my attraction forever be drawn to you, without being diverted to anything or anyone else. That was her prayer. Yes, there will be so many diversions, so many temptations, but somehow or other, we must take shelter of the holy name. We must take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. We must take shelter of the association of the devotees. We must take shelter of the deities, of the 9 processes of devotional service. And that was Prahlad. Such character. He knew that even though my father hates me, if I follow what he wants me to do, then that ignorant sentiment will show my hatred for my father's soul. But if I continue in my devotional service, that is the way I could best show my love for Krishna. And if you water the root of the tree, every part of the tree is satisfied. If I just remain faithful to the Lord's holy name and to the Lord's loving service, I will show the greatest amount of mercy and love to my Father, whether he understands it or not. That is love.